In my previous life, I dreamed of a koi carp entering my womb during pregnancy, and everyone called it an auspicious omen. I poured all my resources into raising my daughter to become the empress, only to have my family disgraced and my husband betray me. As poison seared my throat, I finally learned that this so-called daughter was the child of his mistress, her destiny swapped with that of my own flesh and blood through dark magic. Me poor, true daughter had long been abused to death, while my adopted daughter, instigated by the mistress, brought ruin upon my entire clan. After dying filled with hatred, I opened my eyes again to find myself back at the time of my pregnancy. I caressed my belly and let out a soft laugh, my tears laced with hate. In this life, I will make that life-stealing pseudo Koi suffer the backlash of her own curse, her body and soul shattered. I will make that vicious mistress's schemes come to nothing, leaving her to sink forever into the mire. As for that faithless man, I lifted the medicine cup to my lips, my smile mirroring the thunder outside. A man so weighed down by sin deserves a terrible death. The burning pain of the poison that had dissolved my insides still seemed to linger in my throat. The cloying, venomous laughter of Delia echoed in my ears, mixed with Gideon's cold command, "Send the lady on her way." I snapped my eyes open. Brocade curtains with tassels, the scent of incense curling in the air. "The lady is awake! The lady is awake!" My maid Rose cried out in surprise, her voice piercing my ears. Before my vision had fully cleared, a familiar figure strode into the inner chamber, bringing with him the same anxious tenderness I had drowned in for a lifetime. "Arya," Gideon sat on the edge of the bed, carefully helping me up. His large hand was warm as he gently rested it on my still, flat abdomen, his voice a perfect blend of nervousness and ecstasy. "Be careful, you are not alone anymore. The physician just came by. He said it has been nearly 2 months. I looked up at his handsome, gentle face. The lingering love I once held in my eyes had long been crushed to dust in the chilling despair of my previous life. Poisoned, my family destroyed, my own daughter brutally killed. Now all that remained was a deathly stillness, beneath which churned a bloodthirsty hatred. Me nails dug sharply into my palm. The piercing pain jolted me to full alertness, forcing a weak but joyful smile onto my lips. My voice was hoarse. "Truly, I am with child." I lowered my gaze to my belly, concealing the storm raging in my eyes. "It is absolutely true." Seeing my reaction, Gideon's smile deepened, his tone growing even gentler. "Would I lie to you? You must rest well. I've already given orders to have the 100-year-old ginseng from the storehouse stewed for you. Oh, and my lady, while you were asleep, you were murmuring something about a koi. Did you dream of something?" There it was. In my past life, it was this dream, this so-called auspicious omen of a koi entering the womb, that had pushed me and my entire clan step by step into the abyss. I lowered my lashes to hide the cold fury in my eyes. My voice was light, tinged with uncertainty. I think I dreamed of a golden red koi carp leaping into my arms." "Really?" Gideon's eyes lit up, and he clapped his hands with a laugh. "Wonderful. A koi in a dream is a heaven. Sent omen, my lady. This child will surely be a child of great fortune. Blessed with deep fortune, they will bring glory to our house of Lu in the future." He laughed heartily, as if he could already see the bright future this blessed child would bring him. When he had laughed his fill, I slowly raised my eyes, a strange curve to my lips as I said softly, "Yes, my husband, you are right. A truly great, auspicious omen indeed." That night Gideon slept in his study, claiming it was so I could rest and nurture the pregnancy. I lay under the cold brocade quilt, my eyes open, staring at the blurred embroidery on the canopy, sleepless. The next morning after breakfast, Gideon's steward arrived with a maidservant. "My lady, the master has ordered this pregnancy, calming medicine to be prepared for you. He specifically sent me to watch you drink it, lest you refuse because of the bitterness." With that, the steward waved the maid forward. "My lady, if you please." The steam from the medicine carried a faint, bitter scent. In my previous life, it was just like this, filled with the joy of a new mother and complete trust in him. I drank every bowl of pregnancy, calming medicine he sent, feeding the soul of that life, stealing pseudo-Koi, his mistress's daughter Delia, nourishing it bit by bit until it grew strong enough to completely devour everything that belonged to my own child. I tilted my head slightly, feigning a choke on the medicinal steam. I covered my lips with an embroidered handkerchief and coughed twice, smoothly spitting the entire mouthful of liquid into the absorbent cloth. When I looked up again, a trace of the medicine was on my lips. I licked it off and frowned prettily. "It is a bit bitter." The steward, suspecting nothing, showed a flash of satisfaction in his eyes, his smile widening. He quickly had the maid bring a plate of candied fruits to me. "My lady, the master had someone cross 2 streets just to buy your favorite candied fruits, to help with the bitterness of the medicine." Hearing this, a chill flashed in my downcast eyes. I leaned back against the soft pillows, looking weary. "I know. Rose, see the steward out. I am tired." The steward understood immediately and bowed. "Since my lady is tired, I will take my leave." He gave Rose a few more instructions before turning to depart. The door closed, leaving only my trusted maid. Rose in the room, the fragile look on my face vanished in an instant, replaced by icy coldness and venomous hatred. I gestured for Rose to bring the teacup from the table, then squeezed the medicine, soaked handkerchief, wringing the dark liquid into the cup. "My lady?" Rose asked, her voice filled with surprise and unease. The sudden change in her mistress's expression and the cold light in her eyes made her heart tremble. "Rose." My gaze was as sharp as a blade, piercing straight through her. "You are not to speak of what happened today to anyone. Pour this into the animal pens in the backyard. Then send a message to the Shen family. Just say I am feeling unwell and am craving the 8 treasure cake my mother makes." I stared at the bowl of black liquid, a cold smirk playing on my lips. Since they say the koi brings fortune, I shall make that fortune even deeper. Rose didn't question me. She did as she was told and returned shortly, reporting in a low voice, "My lady, it is all done. The message has been sent to the Shen Manor by a trusted, swift courier." I nodded, my fingers unconsciously twisting the soft silk of the bed covers, my mind already elsewhere. Me father was a grand tutor of the 2nd rank, while Gideon was merely a 5th rank official. If not for my father's secret help, Gideon would likely have never been able to establish himself in the capital. In my last life, as soon as my pregnancy was confirmed, Gideon was often away from home. I thought the Emperor valued his abilities and was giving him many assignments. I even begged my father to recommend him further, helping him rise to the position of Minister of Revenue. I never knew the man was a wolf, secretly plotting to bring down my entire Shen clan to make way for his true love, even using my daughter as their stepping stone. At this thought, the killing intent in my heart intensified. In this life, I would watch them suffer the backlash of their own curse. My mother arrived quickly. As soon as she entered, I had Rose dismiss the other servants, saying I wanted to speak with my mother alone. When we were alone, I looked at my mother's worried face, and the tears I had been holding back finally fell. "Mother, Arya missed you so much." The Grand Tutor's wife had a loving expression. She took out a handkerchief to wipe my tears, chiding gently. "You child, you are about to become a mother yourself, yet you are still like a little girl. What would others think if they saw you?" Smelling my mother's unique scent, I finally relaxed. This wasn't a dream. I was truly reborn, back before all the tragedies began. In my past life, I had poured my heart into raising my daughter. I went to my parents countless times for help. When Delia took a liking to the food from our family estate, I ignored my parents' wishes and insisted on bringing their chef to my home. When Delia and the 5th princess both wanted the same piece of jewelry, I shamelessly asked my mother to plead with the imperial consort, completely offending the consort's family, the powerful general's house. When Delia set her sights on the crown prince, I spent a fortune grooming her, even bribing a palace servant to learn the prince's preferences so she could accidentally meet him and win his favor. And what did I get for it? Gideon paraded his mistress before me. The daughter I had so carefully raised called that woman mother, and looked at me with contempt as she told me my father had been convicted of treason, my parents beheaded, and my relatives had all died on the road to exile. I had been bedridden for a long time by then. Hearing the devastating news, I tried to get up and kill them, but in the end, I was pathetically forced to drink poison, my organs burning away before I took my last breath. Arya, Arya. My thoughts returned to the present. Seeing my mother's concerned eyes, I spoke with a grave expression. Mother, what I am about to say may sound incredible, but every word is true. I quietly told her about Gideon's conspiracy with his mistress. Outrageous, I knew that Gideon was a schemer. My mother cursed, her voice filled with rage. Your father and I were against this marriage from the start. A daughter of the Grand Tutor's house has no shortage of suitors. She could have even become an imperial consort. But you were determined to marry him, so we had no choice. Now, he finally shows his true colors. My mother's face was filled with fury, which then softened into pain as she looked at me. Arya, now that you know Gideon's true nature, we must find a way for you to leave, even if we have to take this to the Emperor himself. Your father and I will get you out of this place that devours people. Mother. I grabbed her hand, my voice cold with a trace of hatred. Wouldn't that be letting him off too easily? Since Gideon wants to use my Shen family as a stepping stone for him and that mistress, then let's grant him his wish. I only hope he can bear this heaven-sent fortune. What will you do? Do you need your father and me to do anything? I whispered my plan to my mother. She listened with a solemn expression and nodded. Rest assured, Arya. Leave this to us. You just need to focus on your pregnancy. After a few more words with my mother, I saw it was getting late and prepared to see her off. Just then, we ran into Gideon returning from his duties. Arya. Seeing me, Gideon's face broke into a gentle smile. His eyes flickered when he saw my mother beside me. But he quickly stepped forward and bowed. Greetings, Mother. My mother nodded slightly, then turned to me. That is enough. You are with child. You don't need to see me out. Gideon is home early today. Let him spend more time with you. I will go now. Take good care of yourself. I nodded and watched my mother's figure disappear. Turning to Gideon, I adjusted his collar and then took his arm as we walked back. Husband, I suddenly craved treasure cake today, so I asked Mother to come over. I didn't think it was important enough to inform you. You aren't angry with me, are you? Gideon stopped and turned to me, his expression serious. My lady, now that you are with child, you are the most important person in this household. Forget the cakes your mother makes, if you desire it. I will go and learn from her myself, so that you may have your favorite cake every day. I shyly tapped his chest. You tease, there are so many people watching. Ahaha. Gideon laughed loudly, sweeping me into his arms and striding towards our chambers. On the way, I could be heard murmuring, in broad daylight, husband, what are you doing? My gaze inadvertently swept over the rockery, where a corner of a pink dress was visible. Seeing this, the smile on my face grew even more tender, completely captivating Gideon. Unfortunately, I was not yet past my first trimester, and Gideon was burning with a desire he could not quench. I feigned reluctance and said, Perhaps I should choose a couple of maids to serve you, husband. It pains my heart to see you like this. Gideon, of course, refused, even swearing an oath that I would be the only woman in his life. Otherwise, may he be plagued by a terrible illness and die a dog's death. No wonder I had been so devoted to him in my past life. What woman doesn't love to hear such sweet words? But Gideon, you said it yourself. A faithless man deserves to be punished. Gideon lingered for a while longer before reluctantly leaving. The moment he was gone, my expression changed. I had Rose bring me a cloth and scrubbed my hands over and over until they were red and raw, almost as if to strip off a layer of skin. Rose had to stop me. My lady, what are you doing? What if you break the skin? She brought over some hand lotion and carefully applied it for me. I looked down at my hands. A moment ago, I had almost given in to the urge to wrap them around Gideon's neck. My lady, Rose reported. I made some inquiries. The girl is a flower girl who delivers flowers to the greenhouse. Her name is Alara. She comes every 3 days. Today was her day. I narrowed my eyes. The greenhouse. Alara, it was her. I remembered before my marriage. I had gone with my mother to the Dayan temple to pray. In the temple's back garden, I saw a small, thin girl carrying a flower pot twice her size. A young monk explained that she was the daughter of a local farmer. Her parents, who were florists, had been killed by a rockslide while making a delivery, leaving her all alone. The temple took pity on her and allowed her to deliver flowers for them to make a living. I never thought that the little girl from back then would now, under the guise of delivering flowers, seduce Gideon and manipulate him into seizing his wife's family fortune and taking lives. At this thought, I rose and, avoiding the servants, went to the window behind the study to listen. My lord, you promised me. Have you really fallen for that young lady of the Shen family? A delicate voice, filled with a pitiable tone. You little vixen, who can compare to you? That woman is like a dead fish in bed, so boring. If it weren't for her family's influence, why would a man like me have to coddle her? You are terrible. Alara traced circles on Gideon's chest with her fingertip, fanning the flames of his desire until he was ready to pounce. The fire he had just suppressed was now rekindled. Gideon held back no longer. He threw himself upon her, and soon the room was filled with the sounds of a man's panting and a woman's cries of pleasure. I stepped back in disgust. My eyes fell on the wine jars at the base of the window. A smirk touched my lips. I summoned the secret guards my mother had left for me. When the servants came to report it, the fire in the study had already reached the front door. I rushed over, feigning panic. Gideon stood in the courtyard, looking disheveled. Beside him, Alara was wrapped in a thin blanket, shivering. Husband, are you all right? I rushed to Gideon, frantically checking him over. When I confirmed he was unharmed, a flash of disappointment crossed my heart. My gaze then turned to Alara. And who is this young lady? Seeing my curiosity, Gideon quickly explained. My lady, it is thanks to this young lady that I was saved. Otherwise, I would have been crushed by a falling beam. I was rather hoping you would be. Hearing this, I stepped forward with a grateful expression. Which part of the household do you serve in? I don't believe I've seen you before. Ahem, Alara coughed, her voice a little hoarse. My lady, I am not a servant of this house. I am the flower girl who delivers plants to the estate. Oh, I said, feigning understanding, then looked confused again. But the greenhouse is in the south wing. How did you end up in the north wing, and just in time to save my husband? My suspicious gaze fell on both of them. Alara instinctively glanced at Gideon, a look of grievance in her eyes that screamed of a secret affair. A flicker of panic crossed Gideon's eyes. He didn't even look at her as he said authoritatively, "She must have gotten lost. This estate is so large and she is not familiar with it. She must have taken a wrong turn." Alara had no choice but to bite her lip and agree. Yes, my lady, I got lost. I happened to see the fire, and there was no one around, so I rushed in to save him. I said no more, only ordered the steward to give the servants stationed outside the study 20 lashes each, and dock a month's pay as punishment for abandoning their posts. Gideon, of course, said nothing. Besides, these servants were not innocent. Alara had visited the estate several times, and not a single one of them had informed me. Since that was the case, they would be punished according to the rules, so they would remember who the true master of this house was. My pregnancy passed the 3-month mark. One day, Gideon came home for lunch, which was highly unusual. With him was an old Taoist priest. Seeing this, my heart tightened. The day had finally come. In my last life, it was the same. Gideon had invited a priest to the manor, who declared that the child in my womb had an aura of nobility and was destined to ascend to the Phoenix throne. From then on, Gideon was even more convinced that my child was a reincarnated koi, and he personally fed me the pregnancy, calming medicine every day, pushing me step by step into the abyss. But this time, it was their turn to reap what they had sown. "Husband, why are you home so early today? And who is this?" I asked, looking curiously at the priest beside Gideon. Before Gideon could answer, the priest's eyes fixed on my belly, his gaze unsettling. I took a step back in fear. Gideon rushed to support me and looked at the priest. "Master Taoist, is something wrong?" The priest closed his eyes, his fingertips tapping as he muttered something under his breath. Gideon and I watched quietly. After a moment, the priest's eyes snapped open, his gaze sharp as he stared at me. "My lady, have you dreamed of a koi carp, with golden scales and a red body, glowing with a golden light as it soared upwards?" I looked at the priest in astonishment. He was so precise. That day I dreamed of the koi. I had not told anyone about its features, so everyone had simply thought it a good omen and had not asked for details. Seeing he was correct, the priest stroked his long beard, nodding and then shaking his head. Gideon grew anxious. "Master Taoist, what is it? Is the child in my wife's womb healthy?" "Rest assured, Lord Lu, the lady carries a reincarnated koi. In the future, this child will bring glory to your ancestors and soar to great heights." A look of wild joy flashed in Gideon's eyes, as if he could already see himself ascending to a high position, commanding the world. "It is just a pity." The priest's words made Gideon tense again. "A pity, Master Taoist? Has something happened?" The priest chanted. "It is a pity that this manor is filled with a malevolent aura, which prevents the descending koi from breaking through the barrier. It cannot leap the dragon's gate. In the end, I fear it will fall back to the mortal realm and vanish into nothingness." Gideon was horrified and quickly asked how to break the curse. The priest calculated for a long time before finally saying, "If this child is to be born safely, it must be nourished by the heart's blood of a close relative for 49 days, and prayers must be chanted until the blessed child is born. Only then can the koi leap the dragon's gate and bless the house of Lu." Gideon's eyes lit up, but then he frowned. "Master Taoist, you mean the heart's blood?" "Husband, no. I don't want you to harm yourself. Since this child is a reincarnated koi, it will surely be able to overcome any misfortune. Besides, I do not wish for great wealth or status. I only want our child to be safe and sound." Hearing this, Gideon chided gently. "Nonsense, Arya. Our child will be the most fortunate person in the world. We will follow the Master Taoist's instructions. It is only a few drops of blood. As long as our child is healthy, I would give my own life. Master Taoist, please tell us in detail what must be done." The priest gave me a subtle glance and suggested I move to the Dawn Temple to nurture my pregnancy. The temple was a place of great spiritual power. If the koi was bathed in its incense daily, it could overcome its trials, ascend, and bring blessings for generations. Gideon agreed without hesitation. "My lady, you will have to endure some hardship, but rest assured, I will come to the temple every day after my duties to be with you. As soon as our child is safely born, I will bring you home." Life at the temple was simple and dull. My only daily amusement was listening to Rose's tales of Gideon and Alara. Every day, Gideon would let his blood into the pregnancy, calming medicine. He had secretly inquired and been told that if the soul-swapping ritual was supplemented with his heart's blood, the blessed koi child would surely protect him. Becoming the ruler of the world was not out of the question. The claim was preposterous, even treasonous. But Gideon was blinded by the promise of imminent wealth and power. It seemed he was on the verge of becoming the master of the world. But he didn't know that this dark magic came with a karmic price. By adding his own heart's blood, He had taken on a share of that karma. The wound on his chest continued to fester and would not heal. The daily bloodletting was excruciating, but for the sake of the fortune that seemed within his grasp, Gideon endured it all. Meanwhile, Alara suffered from unbearable abdominal pain every day, her screams echoing through her home. But the doctors could find nothing wrong, suggesting only that the child was overly active. This made Gideon's heart ache for her. He repeatedly promised that she would never have to suffer like this again, and that he would marry her as soon as the child was born. With the blessed child in their hands, a good life was just around the corner. But he didn't know they had no future. The old priest had secretly allied with me. With his only grandson in my hands, he did as I commanded Gideon. Struggling with his festering wound and the need to placate Alara, found himself unable to cope with his duties at court. Furthermore, I had already secretly informed my father not to help Gideon, but to subtly hinder him. So Gideon remained a mere fifth-rank official, a far cry from the glory of his past life as Minister of Revenue. Alara's daily pain was because her child's soul was being torn apart by wild beasts. The child in her womb had long become the pigs, ducks, chickens, and dogs of the animal pens, the snakes, wolves, rats, and ants of the temple's back mountain. They gnawed at her organs day and night, causing unbearable pain. Soon, it would all be over. On a very ordinary morning, I sat in my room, holding a bowl of dark, medicinal soup. Rose stood beside me, her expression grave. "My lady, must we do this? It is not yet time." I knew what she was worried about, but I couldn't wait any longer. My due date was still a month away, but Gideon had grown suspicious. Why was my health unaffected by the daily pregnancy? Calming medicine. He suspected I wasn't drinking it, and my belly was growing larger. I couldn't take the risk. If Gideon discovered something, my child and I would be in grave danger. This time, I would not allow any harm to come to my child. So I decided to induce labor early. I had been very careful throughout my pregnancy, taking all my supplements, all so that she would be strong when the time came. Ignoring Rose's protests, I drank the soup in one gulp. I then told Rose to fetch the midwife I had arranged for, to guard the room, and then I lay on the bed waiting for the effects to begin. Just as a dull ache started in my belly, my mother arrived. "You child, why didn't you tell me sooner? If Rose hadn't secretly sent word, how long would you have kept this from me?" Though her tone was disapproving. She immediately told Rose to prepare ginseng slices in case I fainted from exhaustion. I endured the waves of pain, forcing a smile. "Mother, I just didn't want you and Father to worry. That is why I didn't let Rose tell you. But this girl, she told you anyway." My mother's face was filled with pain. Childbirth is no small matter. If it weren't for this clever girl, Rose, and you had kept this from me, if something had happened, it would have been the death of me. At that moment, a sharp contraction seized me, and a warm gush flowed from beneath me. Soon the midwife was shouting, "The water has broken. Quickly, hot water scissors." While encouraging me, under the pain and tearing, I was like a fish on the shore, gasping for breath. My consciousness began to fade, the sounds around me growing distant, like a drowning person on the verge of suffocating. A bitter liquid was poured into my mouth, and I heard my mother's urgent calls. A white light seemed to flash before my eyes. I saw Gideon's hypocritical face, Alara's smug and contemptuous eyes, and Delia's vicious expression. "No, no, no." I snapped my eyes open, hearing an urgent cry. Arya, don't sleep. You can't sleep. The baby is almost here. Just one more push." "The baby?" "Yes, my baby," suddenly. I found new strength following the midwife's instructions. I pushed with all my might, enduring the tearing pain, feeling something emerge from my body. With a slap, the midwife's hand struck a tiny bottom, and the soft cry of a baby filled the air. "Congratulations, my lady. It is a beautiful baby girl." The midwife cleaned the baby and brought her to me. Looking at my small, fragile child, a wave of sorrow washed over me. My child. This was my own daughter. I named my child Pearl, and she was entered into my Shen family's registry. Gideon did not deserve her. Pearl stayed with me for only 3 days before my mother took her back to our family estate. As much as it pained me to part with her, for the sake of our future, I had to endure it. The child was much safer with my family than with me. This time, I would not let anyone bully my daughter. As for Gideon and Alara, it was time to settle the final score. For a few days after giving birth, I was too weak to see visitors. I had Rose turn Gideon away at the door, using the excuse that I didn't want him to see me looking unwell. Gideon, thinking my weakness was due to the soul swapping, let his suspicions rest. He only instructed Rose to ensure I drank the pregnancy, calming medicine on time. It was the final stretch. There could be no mistakes. I used this time to recover my strength. A tough battle lay ahead. The day soon came. About a week before my original due date, a message came from the Shen family's secret guards. Alara's pain had intensified. Her belly was swollen like a large urn, unnaturally so, and was even seeping a foul, smelling pus, giving her no peace day or night one day. As Gideon was accompanying Alara on a shopping trip, she let out a blood-curdling scream without warning. Ah! The next moment she collapsed, her body soaked in blood. The surrounding crowd watched in horror as Alara's belly swelled larger and larger, and then, with a bang, it exploded, spilling her intestines all over the ground. Alara died instantly. Then, a monster with the head of a wolf, the body of a snake, and the tail of a pig crawled out of her ruptured belly. Screams, shouts, and curses filled the air. Gideon seemed to be in a state of shock, standing frozen, covered in blood. It wasn't until the monster crawled out that he snapped back to reality, crying out in grief. Alara. Rumors flew through the capital. Lord Lu's mistress had given birth to a monster. It must be a punishment from the heavens for some terrible sin. At the same time, news spread that I, upon hearing the rumors at the temple, had been so distressed that I had gone into premature labor and lost the child. In an instant, Lord Lu's reputation was in tatters. Even the emperor heard of how he had neglected his pregnant wife in favor of a concubine, leading to a divine punishment where his mistress gave birth to a monster that plagued the world. He immediately issued a decree stripping Gideon of his official rank, reducing him to a commoner, and forbidding anyone from his family from taking the imperial examinations for 3 generations. Upon receiving the decree, Gideon, under the scornful gaze of the imperial eunuch, coughed up a large mouthful of blood and collapsed. And my father, the Grand Tutor, hearing of how his daughter had been treated, was furious. He petitioned the emperor to grant a divorce so that his daughter could be free of Gideon forever. After some consideration, the emperor granted the request and placed Gideon in my father's custody, his fate to be decided by our family. When Gideon awoke, he was in a dungeon, awake. I looked down at the disheveled man. There was no trace of our past affection in my eyes, only a murderous hatred. Gideon, thinking I was merely angry about Alara, shamelessly pleaded. My lady, it was all Alara's doing. She seduced me, she threatened me, she said she would harm you if I didn't obey her. I had to placate her, intending to deal with her after our child was born. His gaze dropped to my abdomen, which was now flat. He said in shock, "My lady, the child. Where is the child in your belly?" I gave him a cold look. The child gone. She knew her father didn't love her, so she left. Impossible. She was my lucky star, the one who would help me reach the pinnacle of power. Gideon screamed, grabbing the iron bars and shaking them violently, his eyes filled with malice. Arya Shen, you harmed my child. You ruined my future. You bitch, you deserve to die. To die. Silence. How dare a commoner like you insult Lady Shen? A guard from the Shen family shouted, lashing his whip at Gideon. Hearing Gideon's screams of pain, the anger in my heart subsided a little. But it wasn't enough. In my last life, he and Alara had fooled me completely. Now that Alara was dead, Gideon would have to pay for the rest of their sins. Gideon, aren't you going to ask about your beloved Alara? I stepped forward, a smirk on my lips. I heard that, on that day, the people of the capital witnessed Alara give birth to a monster. Believing it to be a divine punishment, they burned her body to ashes and threw them into the gutter. And that monster, it was beaten to death with sticks and thrown into the mountains for the wild dogs to eat. It has probably been completely devoured by now. Hearing this, Gideon's eyes turned crimson. He continued to curse at me, but the more he cursed, the faster the whip fell. Soon there wasn't a single patch of unscathed skin on his body, and he was left gasping on the floor. I would not let him off so easily. I looked at him with cold eyes and continued. Do you know why Alara gave birth to a monster? Because I fed every last drop of the pregnancy. Calming medicine you gave me to the animals in the pens and the wild creatures in the back mountains. I had the soul of the child in Alara's womb torn apart by beasts and replaced with their souls. Of course, she could only give birth to a monster. How do you like this ending? Vicious woman. You vicious, evil woman. You will not die a good death. Gideon lay on the floor, coughing up blood, able to do nothing but glare at me and curse. Vicious. I was only protecting myself. If you had no evil intentions, you would not have met such a fate. I signaled for the guard to open the cell door. I walked in, stepped on Gideon's face, and leaned down to whisper, Gideon, my daughter was born safely long ago. Seeing the hope rise in his eyes, I continued. But unfortunately for you, she is in my Shen family's registry. She will only ever be a Shen. As for you, Gideon, you will die without an heir, and you will not have a good death. No, Gideon wailed, but I paid him no mind. I turned and left, only instructing the guard not to let him die too easily. Stepping out of the dungeon and into the warm sun, I walked with a light heart towards my mother's courtyard. There, I would find my daughter, my family. Though Gideon and Alara had been punished, the person behind them was still lurking in the shadows. A mere flower girl could not have persuaded Gideon to abandon his own child and poison his wife on her own. Upon my rebirth, I had instructed my father to investigate secretly. After peeling back the layers, we discovered that Alara's appearance was no accident, but was tied to the struggle between the princes at court. The person behind her was the fifth prince, the son of the imperial consort. The fifth prince, though the son of a high-ranking consort, was known for being low-key and idle, on good terms with all his brothers. Who would have known that this non-threatening prince would eventually defeat the crown prince and ascend to the throne? In my past life, Gideon had thrown his lot in with the fifth prince through Alara and had been rewarded for his support. By the time I died, the fifth prince had already been enthroned and had appointed Gideon as the new grand tutor, taking over my father's position. In this life, the crown prince was gentle and loved by the people. The Shen family was, of course, staunchly loyal to him. After my father presented the evidence he had gathered, it was soon revealed that the fifth prince was forming factions and using underhanded tactics to sow discord among the court officials. He was stripped of his royal title, reduced to a commoner, and exiled to the imperial mausoleum, never to return to the capital. The court underwent a major cleansing. The emperor also announced that he was in poor health and abdicated in favor of the crown prince, becoming the emperor emeritus. And my Pearl grew older, learning to say mama. She was bright and lovely, like a little porcelain doll. In my past life, she had been tormented to an early death by Alara. In this life, I wanted to give her the very best. Rose walked quickly towards me, frowning. My lady, news from the dungeon. They say that man keeps shouting that he is the grand tutor. Could he have gone mad? I raised an eyebrow. It seemed Gideon had been reborn too, but too late. Still, this was good. It would have been a pity if he had died without understanding. Now, it was perfect. I gave a few quiet instructions. Rose quickly left. In the evening, As I was walking with Pearl in the garden, a servant reported that Gideon was dead. Pearl asked me who that was. I simply replied, "Just a man weighed down by his own sins."